The alarm logger configuration is stored in SQL Server database together with your alarm server configuration. When the alarm logger runs, it subscribes to the alarm and event servers and stores received information to a database in the SQL Server. Here you see that we have two configurations, one for alarms and one for events. The difference is that the events configuration is configured to subscribe to the event server, and the alarm configuration is configured to subscribe to the alarm server. Another difference you can see is that the column names, these are the columns being created in the table in your SQL database, may be different for each configuration. So the event log has maybe a previous value, and the previous value is the name of the column, and it actually links to the attribute that it receives from the event server. Maybe the new value is a different attribute, the source is a different attribute. But the names of the columns are linked to the attributes from your event and alarm server. Also, some settings we see here is if we would be using printing, then where would the print show up on paper? We will most likely not be using printer, but we'll discuss the settings. If you want to make a brand new configuration, you right-click your configuration, select copy, you right-click configurations and select paste. And then you start to remove settings or columns if needed, and you can change the subscription when needed. So in the subscription, you specify the range of information that we would like to see. And maybe you want to see alarms starting from priority 1 up to 1000. Here's also where you list more than one alarm servers if you would have multiple alarm servers on your network to which we need to subscribe. Now, a networked alarm server would have a syntax like this. The node name would be like 192. Whatever the IP address or the name is of that particular computer on the network. For now, we keep the alarm server local in respect to our alarm logger. And in the bottom, we can also specify some filtering. And there is an expression that you can use. On the right hand side, you have arithmetic and relational functions, logical functions. And these can be used to look at the attributes coming from your alarm source. And if the alarm is higher than priority 500, but lower than 875, then we are interested in these alarms. And in other case, any other alarm that starts with fire, we're using the wildcard. So any fire type of alarm source is interesting to be collected. And these will be stored into the database as well. As mentioned, we can use printing. Printing is supported to a primary as well as a backup printer. You would specify the page settings, how many lines on the page, and some header, some footer for the page, and then you specify enable printing, you specify the name of your printer on the network, you can browse for it, and you can also look at the status of your printer being, for instance, exposed through an SNMP tag. Now, if this printer fails, we have a backup printer, and that other backup printer may be somewhere else on the network, so that always paper is generated. But most likely you don't need printing because all your alarms are stored in a SQL database, so you can always query the database at any moment in the future. The archiving and redundancy section allows you to specify how many alarms we keep in the current alarm log. So the alarm log table will keep 1000 records in my case. When there are more, they are archived in an archive table, and it can contain 10,000 records. And when this table is full, it will create another archive table until we have 10 archive tables, and then the oldest table will be removed. So in this example configuration, we will maintain 100,000 alarm records from the past, that is maybe sufficient to track and trace the quality of our processes. But you can change this when needed. So every 1 hour, archiving is tested to see how many alarms need to be moved to archive tables and if an archive table needs to be created. Redundancy is used to have 2 alarm loggers. So one is logging to one SQL database, the other one to another database. And when this database is temporarily not available, we could use a store and forward feature. We specify the folder name on the hard disk to which alarms are being logged. If they are logged, then they are buffered, and when the logger is or the server is available, the SQL server is available again, those stored records will also be forwarded to the SQL database. For now, we may not need redundancy. Just have a single database. Always in your alarm configuration, ensure to enable your database logging. If you temporarily want to disable it, you uncheck it, but this is the normal operation. Maybe on startup you want to squelch for a minute so that not all alarms are recorded. And we can specify a custom database to which we need to log alarms. Because it's probably good practice to not log alarms to the same database as where your configuration is stored. So if you have a smart project, you may want to log it into a catalog called My Smart Project, and that's where all your alarm logs are created and maintained. And the name of the alarm table in your SQL database is called alarm log. You can give it a different name as well. There is some caching that you can change, and this is the time zone on which the alarm logger is actually running. You can keep it empty for now. If your alarms are language translated, then the purpose would be that your language may want to be translated to some language, like Italian or Chinese or German, or you keep it to non-translated. So if you keep it to translation, you specify the translation language to which it needs to be translated. And for some alarm loggers, for some OEMs, the alarm logger is translated, and you want to then synchronize the language locale ID with the currently selected language. But you can keep it unchecked so that the logger will stay English and the translation to the database will be automatically performed by the logger. This completes all the settings that we have in our configuration. The last step may be to verify if your alarm logger is running. So if it's green, it's all ready, and you are able to analyze your history of alarms by using a dashboard in AlarmWorx and use the alarm viewer, or you can query the alarms in the SQL server. If the traffic light is clicked, then actually the alarm logger in this case will stop, and then the service is not running, so no alarms will be generated. So ensure that the traffic light is green to be operational.